Welcome back to Unlocking Your More podcast with Janna Holterman. Today we're going to be talking about how wanting things is actually holding us back, but we're going to start with a little bit of a physics lesson, and you're probably like, what? But don't worry, this is important, right? So I want you to understand how this works in order for you to get how it shows up in your life, right? So when you push on something, if you remember back to high school physics, if you took high school physics, there's a law of opposing forces, basically, which means the pressure with which you push on something, it actually pushes back with an equal opposing pressure. So if you are leaning against a wall with all of your weight, the wall is technically pushing back on you with an equal amount of force. And sometimes we can overcome that and it'll the wall will topple over or something like that. But basically, the concept is even immovable objects, you push against them with a certain amount of force, that object will push against you back on you with a certain amount of force. Now, this works with objects, but it actually works with people and energy. And I feel like you've probably experienced this when you have had somebody who is a little bit too much, too clingy. They're just trying to get in your energy. I feel like as kids, we would always have this, a kid who was like, I want to be your friend. Let me buy this thing for you. Let me do this thing for you. Or maybe in a dating world or something where you're being kind of love bombed, where somebody's a little bit too much and you're kind of whoa, what is happening there? What is happening there is actually their force of the want that they have either to be with you or to feel a certain way, which is causing them to show up and act in that way, is creating you to feel like you don't want them at that same and equal degree. So if somebody wants you too much, you're going to not want them at the same level of their want. So this is what happens is as soon as somebody's overbearing with something, we're going to be whoa, I don't want that. Nope. Remove yourself. Take me out of it, right? And so this is how that physics law actually applies in real life. So why is this important? Why am I even telling you about this lovely little tidbit of science? Because this is one of the biggest things that I've personally experienced, and a lot of the times with my clients, that is actually preventing you from getting the things that you want. Why? Because we want something, whatever it is, and it could be an inanimate object. It could literally be I want a career, I want the car, I want the relationship, I want this thing. And because I have intuition, I can intuitively look in, and if we have a high level of want, a lot of the times we're okay, this is something I've been working towards for a while. My level of want is high 90s for this item. The problem is, right, remember, we push on something, that thing will push back with an equal and opposing force. So if our want is 90s, that means that other object doesn't want us in 90 percentile. So it's going to be really, really hard to create the things that we want when we are at such a high level of want, because we're extremely unbalanced. What happens is we take, say it's, I really want this specific car. We'd be basic white girls and be okay, I really want the G-Wagon, right? I really want this car. That car we put onto a pedestal, right? We put that car on a pedestal and we say that car is going to be the thing that makes us happy. That car is going to be the thing that proves that I'm successful. So people are going to treat me differently. People are going to, show up and interact with me differently. Or maybe they're going to buy from my business because I have that car, or I'm going to get the promotion because I have that car. We are taking and making this outside thing, when this happens, it is going to solve all of my problems. So the reason why the universe, source, God, higher selves went and created this rule was, what the equal and opposing forces is, because that thing isn't actually going to create what you want it to create, right? Like, we're making this external thing be this huge thing that's going to transform our lives. And if you were to actually look at the things that you've wanted and then the things that you've gotten, did they change your life in the way that you wanted? Because I remember, like, way back in the day being like, oh my God, if I have the perfect wedding, everything goes smoothly, I'm going to then be super happy. Well, COVID happened and my wedding kind of got canceled and it ended up being a backyard wedding. But it was one of those things where it was like, well, the backyard wedding was actually beautiful and perfect, but it didn't really change the relationship. It didn't change the marriage. It didn't change anything, but it was something that was worked to and wanted so high. And this is the thing. So even if we get those things that we want, a lot of the time, because we've put that thing on a pedestal, we've made it into this huge thing for ourselves, what happens is our human brain gets involved, and then we have expectations. We have these really, really high expectations of what that thing is going to be like and how it's going to go and how our experience is going to be. And then we actually get the thing. And our expectations are not met because we put it on a pedestal. We made it into the big fucking thing where we thought it was going to be like the lottery winning ticket where all of a sudden I have $1 million and, all my problems are solved. No. Really, what is happening is you are putting everything on an outside source. And what do we know about putting expectations, putting emotions, putting even just like our experience on an outside source? No, outside sources can't change the way that we feel. They can maybe temporarily give you an experience, but what happens? Our brain goes back on autopilot and we go back to feeling the way that we would have regardless, because our thoughts, our feelings are created based on our life experiences, the things we've been through and what our brain perceived and made those things to mean. And those create the neural connections that then become the format that your brain uses to make all decisions moving forward. So the external thing, if we go back to the G-Wagon example, getting that G-Wagon is not going to make you feel any differently. But we put all these expectations on that thing to make us feel better. So what it's actually going to happen is we're going to look at the way we expected to feel, and then we look at the way that we actually did feel, and we beat the shit out of ourselves. It's generally how it goes. We're like, I should be happy. I should feel better. I got exactly what I wanted, but I'm an ungrateful bitch and, everything sucks. And we often will go from this high of achieving that thing to a very, very low. Because we had this high level, equal opposing forces. So we had a really high, so we had to go equally low, right? So what do we actually want to do with these things? So number one, we want to look at why we want something, right? First off, it's a great place to start. And the easiest way to start is purchases, right? You're looking at your purchases and you're like, okay, well, what do I think that this thing is going to provide me? And not just be like, okay, well, I want to have a car because I need to travel from point A to point B. No. What do I think buying this specific car is going to give me? What is it going to make me feel? What is it going to make other people think about me? What is it going to prove to myself if I acquire this item? And it could be as simple as like you go to the grocery store and this kind of like shows you where your values are, right? If you go to the grocery store and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy all organic, grass-fed, no seed oils, all these things. What is that telling you? What are these purchases telling you? It's telling you that your health is a priority. So maybe one of your highest values is, your health, or that like putting yourself first is a priority or something like that, right? So we want to have a good idea of why we want the things that we want. And then it's like, okay, well, realistically, will that thing give it to us? And a lot of the times it won't, right? It really, truly won't. If I truly wanted a car from getting point A to point B, I could go on Facebook Marketplace and get like $1,000 2000 Toyota Corolla, and it's going to get me from point A to point B. But I want something nicer. I want something bougier. But why? What is that going to give me, right? If I can neutralize and prove to myself that that thing is not going to create it, it's going to decrease my level of want for that thing. The other way that we want to do this is we want to decrease our want by finding out, like, you can make a pros cons list and be like, what are all the cons of buying this thing? So all the cons of getting the G-Wagon, like, what are all the negatives? Okay, well, people might, like, you know, think you have a lot of money and they might come up and like ask you for favors, or maybe they want you to drive you places so they can look cool. Maybe they want to be like, oh, I want to take photos with your G-Wagon so they can pretend that they have a G-Wagon. Or also, like, what about the insurance? Think about, you like literally have this $120,000 car. Like, how much is your insurance going to be every single month? If you don't have the cash to pay for that vehicle, maybe you're gonna have to be out of a payment plan. And think about the interest on that car that is that expensive. Oh my God, think about how much that would be. Think about, you know, the maintenance cost on that car. Like, if something were to break down, the cost of parts for that vehicle are going to be a lot more than the cost of parts for the Toyota Corolla, right? There's going to be all of these negatives that we actually want to bring our brains to. Why do we want to bring our brains to that? Because what is actually happening is we are decreasing our want for that item. So when we stop wanting the item, that item isn't resisting us with an equal and opposing force, right? That item actually is more likely to come to us in some capacity because we're not pushing it away. And it may be different, like, okay, maybe the G-Wagon isn't like the best thing, but like maybe there will be an opportunity for you to own one at some point because you don't want it anymore when you wanted it super high. But a lot of the times this is like relationships, right? Think about it, like, you are in a place, like, you're like, okay, you're like, my time clock is ticking, and like, I gotta, you know, I want to have babies in a certain time frame, which means I'm gonna have to like date for a certain amount of time, and then I'm gonna have to be engaged for a certain amount of time, and I'm gonna have to have a wedding for a certain amount of time, and like, my time clock is ticking. Like, I got to get on it. Like, I need to be in a committed relationship ASAP. And you're not gonna go on your first date with somebody like saying this out loud, but this is what internally you're like, I need this so bad. I need this so bad right now, right? And we do this too with jobs. We're like, okay, like, I'm going to interview for this job because, and we already are like 87 steps ahead. We're like, okay, well, when I'm making this amount more money, it's going to be able to make my life a lot easier, and I'm going to be able to pay my bills much easier, and I'm going to be able to like afford to go on that vacation that I've really wanted to go. Like, we just spiral, right? You know, you felt this, right? We've been through this before. Okay, but so like, when you get into the date, when you get into the job interview, your level of want for that job, or to be in that committed relationship that's going to be on the timeline track for the baby or whatever it is that you want, marriage, commitment, to feel seen, connected, validated, heard, all these things. Your want is so fucking high, and the other person on the other side of the table is like, ooh, she's a bit much. I don't know if this is gonna work. It just feels so desperate. It feels so like clingy. And even if you're trying so hard not to be that way, that is going to be like what your energy is sending out. Your body language, everything. Even if you don't say a single word that is desperate and clingy, the energy that you are carrying yourself with, the way that you're interacting and behaving in that interview, first date, whatever, is going to be so like needy and desperate, which is immediately going to push the other person off, and they're gonna be like, I don't want that. Like, no, thank you. This is the same with business interactions, right? If somebody's getting on a consult call for a sales thing and you're like, well, I really need this sale because this is going to be like the, you know, thing that puts me across my milestone, or like, I need this to be able to pay a bill or whatever it is, right? Like, we get super needy and desperate. They feel it. They don't want any part of it. We push them with this high level of want, and they push back with a high level of unwant. We don't want it. I don't even know what the opposite of want is, like resistance. They push back with an equal amount of resistance to what, like, the thing. So when we drop our level of want, when we find out why we want that thing and actually prove that that thing is not going to give us the thing that we want. And then when we also go through all the cons, like what is the problem with having that? Why do I not want that thing? And this might be really hard. If you spent years being like, I'm going after this job, or I need this relationship so that I can start having kids in a reasonable amount of time, when we go and find that, like, it's gonna be hard to find the reasons you don't want it, but come up with even just like simple ones of just like, you know, I'm not gonna have my alone time, I'm not gonna be able to dance naked in my living room if I wanted to, right? Like whatever it is that you're like, okay, these are the things that I might have to sacrifice. I might have to sacrifice time for XYZ. I might, like, you know, even just like, okay, you know, it's going to be a lot of my body, like something my body's been a priority for me, and all of these things could be negatively affected if I were to get pregnant or whatever it is. So find the negatives and regularly come back and find the negatives, because it's going to decrease that needy, desperate energy. And what's going to happen is you're going to bring those things energetically closer to you, and those other people or the other things that are involved aren't going to get this needy, desperate energy, and they're going to be so much more attracted to you and like wanting to work with you, wanting to hire you, wanting to sign up with you, whatever it is, or wanting to date you, right? Think about it like the person you can see this in movies and shows, but you've probably experienced this in real life, right? Like you've got like the really hot girl who like wants nothing to do with you, and all of the boys are like obsessed with her. It's because she doesn't want them, that they want her, because her level of want for them is so low that they have to have a high level of want to match that. So the lower we decrease our want, we give off this like, I don't need that thing energy. And when we give out that like, I don't need that thing energy, that thing tends to want us so much more, right? It's like, I'm losable in that, like, I could leave and I would be totally fine. And that immediately makes them want to commit. And you're like, yeah, I could walk away. Then they want to commit so much harder. Same with the job. You're like, oh, I don't need this job. Like, I could care less about this job. They're going to be like, we need you. You are the person for us. We need you. So this is something that kind of takes a little bit to wrap your head around. But even just thinking, okay, if I push on this thing, it's going to push back with an equal and opposing force. So if I have this super high level of want or super high level of desperation or like whatever it is, that object is going to have no choice but to resist me, to give the opposite thing. So if I lower my level of want, if I find all the reasons that I don't want that, if I recognize that object isn't going to give me the feelings that I want it, and how do I find those on my own, then you no longer need that thing. You no longer have this high level of want that's actually going to help you get closer to that thing that you actually want. All right, let me know if this makes sense. You can send me a message on Instagram if you have any further questions about this or want me to dive deeper in another example or something like that, because I know it's kind of trippy. You're like, what? But I hope that all makes sense. And otherwise, I will talk to you all soon.